It is such an honor to be here with Larry Kim. Larry is the CEO of MobileMonkey, the world's fastest growing Facebook Messenger marketing platform used by millions of users. He's also the founder of WordStream, the world's largest PPC marketing software platform, managing over $1 billion of ad spend for tens of thousands of customers, and acquired by USA Today in July 2018 for $150 million. He's a top contributor to Medium Magazine and CNBC, and he has received Marketer of the Year awards from Search Engine Land, US Search Awards, and PPC Hero.
Real life.
Superpowers.
Up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane!
Gentlemen, we can rebuild him. We have the technology.
It's alive!
Real life.
Superpowers.
Larry, welcome to Real Life Superpowers.
Awesome. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you for being with us. What's keeping you busy these days?
You know, just starting a new business. It's in the messaging space. It's called MobileMonkey. It's just over a year old, and we have over like hundreds of thousands of users. And you know, just I'm trying to get the business, off the ground.
So before I do want to unlock exactly what that business is, but I have a question that's like on my mind before that. And that is, I mean, you have already built a unicorn. So you've really done like what's probably the peak goal of a lot of entrepreneurs. And I'm wondering, like, where do you get the motivation to go on this roller coaster ride once again from scratch?
Oh, great question. It's a lot of entrepreneurs are not necessarily motivated by making money and stuff like this. It's for me personally, it's just a personal challenge. So the goal for me would be just to see if I could do something, twice as big in half the time, or maybe even, take the company public. You learn a lot of lessons when you build and sell a 9-figure company, and it's just I think it would just be such a waste to not have another chance to use those lessons, to see if you could do things even better the second time around.
Got it. So then, okay, let's then tell us please like what the company currently is.
Sure. My new business is called MobileMonkey. So I recently sold my last company, WordStream, and it was the world's largest pay-per-click advertising software company, managing over $1 billion of ad spend for tens of thousands of companies worldwide. And we sold that in July of last year. I just recently started a new business in the messaging space. It's like kind of like a MailChimp for sending and receiving communications to your customers, except that we send messages through messaging platforms like Facebook or WhatsApp or other popular messaging platforms.
And you said something actually brilliant. So the personal challenge you're saying is to make it better, stronger, and faster than last time. But you said there's lessons that learned. So like quickly from this point of view of a unicorn, what are like 3 lessons that you learned from last time that this time you're going to deliver differently? So
one of the challenges is a total addressable market. The product that I was creating, it didn't. It's a big market. Hundreds of thousands of possible companies could use the software, but not millions. So one of the things I wanted to do was to create a sort of a software that I thought every business could use. So just to give you an idea, there's about 100 million small, medium-sized businesses on Facebook, but only about 5 million of them do online advertising. Do you see what I'm saying? So like my last company was in the online advertising space. So I'm already kind of, casting the net on a small 5% of the marketplace. Like this new company, I've got, customers in 120 different countries already. Like WordStream was only like, 10 countries. So it's because messaging is a global kind of phenomenon, and businesses and people use it everywhere. So that would be one.
Isn't it a smaller revenue stream? like on the strategy side, it's smaller revenue streams as opposed to bigger, isn't it?
Yeah. So like our average selling price is around, $30, $40, $50, whereas at WordStream it was, closer to $300 to $500 per month. So I think that's interesting. Another one is, I would argue that I did everything wrong. So, it's pretty much, doing the opposite of everything that I did the first time around, in a nutshell. But, one thing that I'm doing this time around is I'm running it as the CEO. The last time I raised $4 million in 2008, and the venture partner insisted that we bring in a kind of a capable, kind of adult supervision, sort of a hired gun CEO, and part of me is curious to know if that was the reason for the success, or was that just holding me back, and you won't really know unless you try it again. I personally think that if I was calling all the shots, I would have been more aggressive and more taking bigger risks. So if you think about what I'm doing with my current company, it's like the kind of risks that we're taking are crazy. Like we're just, on any given quarter, we'll bet the company on like 2 or 3 things, and we'll just keep making these bold bets. Whereas like my previous partner would never, and investors were a little, they took risks, but it was very difficult to convince them of these crazy ideas. So I guess, when you buy a car, and you buy your next car, you don't buy the same car again, right? So you try something different. So it's kind of the same idea here. Just trying to do this a little differently.
The second reason is really interesting. It's sort of like the reason why you're an entrepreneur is because you're innovative, you can do it your way, and suddenly you're giving something that you built to someone else to lead it. It's sort of like going back to, not from a bad way, but sort of like working a little bit for someone and not having all the control on the steering wheel. And I totally understand that you're saying, okay, give me the steering wheel. I could have done things differently, or at least my way.
Yeah. But look, I'm very happy with the outcome. We sold the business for $150 million. I only raised about $20 million. So, we had most of the common stock basically. But at the same time, in the marketing software space, you have a lot of donkeys that go nowhere. But then you have a couple companies like Marketo or HubSpot or MailChimp, and these are all like $5 to $10 billion companies. And a little bit of me is wondering, like, gee, I wonder, I have this thing where I like to project these big, bold visions, and I wonder if one of the problems was that I wasn't bold enough. So like when I started WordStream, my big dream was to be $100 million business. I thought that was like such a huge dream. And I thought that was so crazy and hilarious at the time, but we actually surpassed those numbers like significantly.
But you sound disappointed.
No, it's not disappointed. It's there's a sort of a certain wondering of what might have been if we had made even bigger, more strategic goals at the beginning, because you kind of get the people and investors that you deserve. So like, you get a certain amount of crazy investor that it's willing to go with you up to that $100 million goal, but not to the $1 billion goal or something like this. And that's a different kind of crazy, because, in marketing, most of these companies go nowhere, but a few companies like HubSpot or MailChimp or Marketo, they're $5 or $10 billion companies. And, those were, that's actually what I'm trying to create this time around. I think that in messaging, there's conceivably a place for a company that, does all the things that like these CRMs do, but through chat, and then potentially that could be like a $1 billion idea.
And it doesn't seem to me like this is about the money to you. It seems like you're really interested in the game, quote unquote.
Oh, it absolutely is about the game. You have people, guests like Rand Fishkin coming on your show talking about how the game is rigged and how terrible it is. And I'm like, give me a break. This is the greatest game ever. This is, there's rules associated with it. And when you raise money, you're making certain promises and you're making a deal a certain way. But as an entrepreneur, you in spite of these rules, you still have to find a way to be successful.
I think maybe Rand felt like he didn't craft the terms of his investment in a way that was beneficial to him. And I think maybe that's something that you've learned how to do, right? Like you know how to approach a deal.
Well, you don't have to. I mean, no one's forcing Rand to take tens of millions of dollars. Like he has to sign on and accept that, it sounds almost like he didn't fully understand sort of the deal mechanics. When he complains about things like liquidation preferences and stuff like that. For example, you could have raised, I think when you raise these super big rounds of like $22 million in one shot, those investors are going to insist on liquidation preferences because they're putting so much at risk. Like they're betting such a big amount. You could have just as easily decided to raise less money, like 5 or 10 or $1 million instead of 22, and then you could negotiate away those liquidation preferences. So everything's a negotiation. There are no rules. It's whatever. It's whatever you can, convince somebody to do. I think, I'm in a much better position this time around, especially because I have, tens of millions of dollars to put in, of my own. And so it's like, I don't really need the outside investment.
But that's not part of the game anymore. Like, it's funny, but a lot of startups now, even though they're like the third exit or fifth unicorn, putting money of your own, it doesn't help get more money from investors. Actually, like pitch-wise, they always rather see other investors inside, right? All right.
Oh, absolutely. So I would say that the investors that I talk to, they're a little bit skeptical. They say like things like, if this is such a great idea, like why aren't you putting your money in? And I do. I've meaningfully, I put all the money into the startup capital and have meaningfully participated along the way. So I think someone else has to price the round. Okay. So like, I can't just say, I think this has a $15 million valuation. And so I'm going to put in $1 million and that's like, for 1/15 of the company. No. Like that's not how that works. You have to find a neutral, unrelated party, so a new investor who's willing to lead the round, and they might put in like $5 million or $2 million, and then I might participate of that $2 million amount or whatever. I might participate for 25% of that or 30% of that. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I totally. I'm really surprised about something. Your mind is really strategic, right? You're playing like you're on the chess level of strategy of even on the business side, but also on the product side. And I'm really wondering, how the heck could someone CEO you? It's like built in. Like you went to that place already strategizing the liquidation of this fictional company that we were talking about right now. And you had that plan in your head and you had a CEO doing that like on the other company. I'm really wondering, like you look like you sound very like that, really talented wild Mustang. Like, can someone actually, work with you on level that you're under them? Like what I mean?
Did that ever happen also? I mean,
I was more of like a free agent. Like there wasn't like I wasn't being held to like the executive management, key performance kind of objectives that like I was more of like kind of like a mad scientist sort of
Wait, have you always been like that strategic like throughout your career? Like were you always like a visionary type?
This is relatively new as I get to know myself. I'm finding out that I can see I have an unusual ability to see leverage in areas in ideas or in strategies or in people. Okay. So just a stupid example, blogging. Okay. Most of my blogs go nowhere. I write about 200 of them a year, but about 3% of them will generate millions of views. Like this is just like niche blogging in the field of online advertising and stuff like this, and marketing. So I think like I've done campaigns that do generate over 1 million links back to the website just from one blog post, and I think that just has to do with the ability to kind of see, kind of visualize what the response will be like for those campaigns, and I think that ability it translates to other areas in hiring. Like I'm the people who I hired, when you have a company with hundreds of people, you're going to hire thousands of people along the journey. But the people that I hired, at my last business and my current business, like they're unicorns. Like the blog manager at WordStream has been one of the best hires. Her name's Elisa Gabbard. She's been there for like a decade, and it's one of my first hires. And no way that the company would have been successful without her. So I'm just able to see leverage in ideas, but also in people.
But do you have any tips for that? Like how to find like the right hire, what you look for? Do you know how to sort of break that down?
Characteristics, maybe.
Ask them for examples. Just if you have a candidate saying they're an out of the box thinker, just ask them for what's the craziest out of the box thing you've ever done. If they can't come up with an example, well, then it's not a good sign. Yeah. And if they do come up with an example, they better light up and be really excited about, how they did some crazy thing that doubled their revenues or something like that. But
does that trigger you because the good idea or because they're passionate and energetic?
I'm judging the energy level as well as the idea, the kind of the ingeniousness of the ideas.
So me and Noah have a theory about hiring. And we think that the most important component is optimistic point of view, which has to do with energy as well, because you can't have energy if you're not optimistic. What do you think about that?
It's definitely a component. I've also run into these people who are hopelessly optimistic, where they don't even know what they don't know, but they think they can do it, and they don't realize it's like beyond their comprehension. Mm-hmm. So I think it has to do with being right. So I like people who will take a bold, they'll take a chance, and where they turn out to actually have made the right bet. Like we recently changed our pricing strategy here, and it was a really risky bet, because how you charge your software, it's like make or break. Okay. And we ended up, spending a good amount of time, like 2-3 months. That's an eternity, in startup life. And we changed the, how we price the software. It's basically, we're charging on sends, like how many messages you send, as opposed to how many people are in your contact list, which is how we used to be charging it. And it had a meaningful, increase in revenues and retention, and people thought it was more fair. So someone took a bet, and it turned out to be right. And I really value that.
And how do you measure fair, by the way, as a value?
Fair?
Yeah, when your client said this business model is fair.
Well, you could have a big list of emails and contacts, but never message them and be charged for that. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's a closer proxy to the value that they're deriving from the product. Just because you have 1 million, subscribers, if you take a month off and don't message them, should you be charged for that 1 million contacts? And people don't even mind paying, for sending 3 million messages in a month, because they actually did that. Like they would prefer to be charged for what they did.
I'm wondering, did you ever work for someone? Like, how did your entrepreneurial journey start?
Oh, it's my mom. My mom's was a piano teacher, so she's a genius. She taught me everything I needed to know. Her marketing strategy. She would just buy a house that was like right next to a school, right. So like she was doing piano teaching lessons, so she would buy a house near a school and then put in the bulletin, piano lessons, and you get like so much customers, because like every parent thinks their your kid's going to be the next Beethoven or something like this. And then she taught me like, she wanted to be the most expensive piano teacher in the neighborhood, and the reason why that is like there's too much supply of these kids that you want to kind of extract kind of the value at the top of the market. Not these kind of like the lower the price, the lower the commitment. So like I just learned a lot about marketing and sales and services and product differentiation from my mom when I was a kid.
And then like, did you go to school after that, or did you go like start like your entrepreneurial journey right after high school?
Oh no, I went to Waterloo in Canada, like an electrical engineering program. It was hard. I was struggling. I don't do well in situations where you have to have a lot of structure and jump through hoops like assignments and finals and labs. Like don't get me wrong, I actually have a very strong grasp of the material. Obviously, you wouldn't start your own software company if you didn't have confidence in your ability to write software. It's just I just get stressed out in those certain situations.
So you graduated, and then you just started your own company?
Yeah, I immigrated to the USA from Canada. It's not a huge move. Learned about marketing, quit my job, started a consulting business.
So you had a job?
Yeah, when you come to USA, you can't just say, "Hey, I'm here, let me in." You have to have a visa, and so I was an American citizen, so I had to get a kind of employer to sponsor my application. I was doing, just software-related jobs, and those are easy to get because it's a high skill, like in demand. And then I did that for a couple of years, and then started a marketing consulting business, and it was all referral. Just people were saying like, work with Larry. It was pretty great. I was in my 20s. Like a retainer fee could be like $5,000 to $10,000 a month, like for a client, and I had like 10 clients. So I was like making like almost 200,000 or 150,000 a month as a 20-year-old, and it was pretty crazy. I was like buying cars and houses, and then
you didn't have a team, like you were doing everything yourself.
I was just a one-man show.
How did you market yourself?
I'm like a lot of marketers who just quit their job and, decide to do freelance work. Okay. The only difference is that when I got to around 10 customers, I realized that this was not scalable and that I couldn't scale anymore. And normally what people do is they hire more people. And what I did instead was I wrote software. So I just wrote software to automate my stupid repetitive tasks around keyword researching and around, ad creation, just all the processes. I just wrote software to automate that. That allowed me to scale a little bit more. And then the idea hit me to like, maybe I should, instead of trying to build a kind of a scalable services business, why not just sell the software? And so with that, it was kind of ridiculous. I was just pitching VCs, like I didn't know anyone. I would just cold email them. This was in 2007, 2008. And I made around 500 pitches. I got about 50 meetings and around 2 offers. So, anyone who says like cold emailing is useless, like just tell them, Larry Kim raised 20 million from cold emailing. Okay, no, seriously, it's just the genesis of WordStream was just writing software to make my life easier, and that evolved into sort of like this global domination plan of trying to be the world's largest pay-per-click advertising software vendor. So cool.
You identified a need for yourself, and you figured this isn't a need just for me, so there's potential here.
That was kind of the idea. It was, I would say that the thesis was wrong, because software that's good for me is probably too advanced for your average marketer. So along the way, we had to kind of pivot downstream to significantly, easier tools. We converted from a tool set to a services set. So instead of tools to help you run your campaigns, it was more like an automated AI system that kind of ran the campaigns for you and sort of notified you of the changes, as opposed to having you figure out what to do. So that was one of the big learnings. But yeah, it was a fantastic journey. In spite of the long odds, like most of these things don't work. I'd still encourage anyone who was interested in starting one of these things to give it a shot.
And how do you know if you have a unicorn on your hands, and like, how do you know how to take it from there, assuming that you do?
I would say like in 2013, 2014, we started, there was a certain velocity around the business. So we're talking like, 3, 4, 5 years into the business. There was a certain amount of velocity in terms of sales. Like, wow, we would sign up, 5 new customers in a day or 10 new customers in a day. Like these are kind of enterprise customers, like, $400 or $500 a month. So at that point I felt like, we really have something. And around 2014, we started making money as opposed to just losing money every month. So that's nice. As to, what to do. That's one of the regrets. I wish we had been a little bit more aggressive in tackling other adjacent features and functions, the way that kind of like a HubSpot has they're doing customer service and they're doing, sales tools, marketing tools, like they're everything. Like we unfortunately, it was just so hard to get to that kind of safe, we've made it sort of area that you kind of lose the appetite for starting that all over again and trying to, find product market fit in a completely different niche. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're trying to sort of play it safe and maintain a certain amount of success that you're actually tapping into.
Yeah, like early on, you've got nothing to lose, so you're kind of just making these bold, crazy bets. But as you start to build up revenue and thousands of customers and hundreds of employees, you kind of naturally switch to sort of like this "don't fuck it up" mode, where you don't want to stick your neck out there as much, and that's unfortunate. Taking risks, it needs to be like a core value of my company. Like we have to be taking those bets, at all stages.
Is that the reason you sold the company, or why did you sell the company?
So I have kind of a inability to focus on something for 10 years, and it was a long time to be doing the same thing. The other, it's like you're building a building and you're pouring the concrete and the concrete hardens, and it's a beautiful building, but it's not like it's not like a child where the future is really unknown, like what the future will be and what this child will become. And so just wanting to it was in a great spot, and I just wanted to try something new.
And before that, like when you were losing money, were you getting very scared and I don't know, thinking about quitting or any other thoughts that are practical? Or did you sort of feel like you have this visceral belief that things are going to work out one way or another?
Oh no, it's terrifying. Like when you're losing money month after month, and it's pretty difficult, and it's just part of the game. You have 12, 16 months to figure out a certain set of challenges and problems, and it's up to you to come up with the strategy and to execute on that strategy within that small amount of time frame, because you can't keep burning forever. The goal is to get to profitability. So it's a very uncomfortable period in a startup growth cycle.
I've heard the saying that some people are like a general of peace and some people are a general of war. So meaning some people are at their best performance when it's a time of crisis and sort of like circumstances that you're describing right now, the time of losing money and having like a set time frame to just, save the company or cease existing. And some people are, operate at their best when everything is smooth sailing. So what would you say? Are you a general of peace or a general of war?
We are operating on a war footing right now. The challenge with this new business is I'm not the only company that decided to do messaging. There's dozens of other companies out there, and they've raised hundreds of millions of dollars to do so. We're like the rebel alliance here. We're being very scrappy, and as resorting to all sorts of crazy tactics and hit and run kind of tactics, and it's having an enormous impact.
But you're flourishing in these circumstances, right?
Yes, of course. I'm very, very competitive. At least internally.
So you're sort of like the rebel alliance till you come to the dark side, right?
Nobody wants to work for the dark side. Do you really want to work for like the big marketing software company? No, you want to join the smaller. You want to join the smaller company that's trying to, create a new thing, right?
And tell me, I have a question. Let's say this company again, you're going to do another unicorn. We trust you on that. You have the charisma and knowledge to do that. What would be the end game? Would that be enough for you, or would next challenge?
So one of the crazy goals for me personally is to take a company public. One of these sort of $100 to $200 million, in revenues sort of thing, where you can go public for $2 to $8 billion in market capitalization. That would be kind of an interesting kind of journey, because when you get a company buying your business, that company is validating your work. Like the acquirer is validating the work that you did. But when you take a company public, the public is validating that work, and so with that price, and so I thought that would be kind of the pinnacle of achievement, at least for an early stage startup guy like myself.
And what would you say right now? What's your superpower?
What's my superpower? So I don't talk about it a lot. My superpower is actually used to be my super weakness, which is I'm autistic. Okay, so if you were to meet me and spend time with me, you'd think I'm kind of like an idiot savant. A lot of my friends and family compare me to like Forrest Gump and stuff like this. So the challenge is that it's been very difficult, to basically clueless socially is sort of the problem. But been able to turn that into a super strength by navigating into technology as a career path, where I think, this is more common, and then navigating away from conventional kind of company structures and navigating towards startups where you create your own culture and you're sort of the boss. And then marketing, I think, is kind of interesting, because especially technical marketing, with SEO and pay-per-click advertising and all this stuff, I think it kind of combines certain strengths that I have around, computation and creativity. It allows me to, create those unicorn campaigns. I think it also helps me see unicorns in people, in ideas, in features and functions and strategies. So there you have it. It's like secret weapon is secret super ability is autism. I have two kids. One of my oldest son is 5, and he's really struggling with autism spectrum disorder, and we're hoping that he finds his way into software startups as well.
There's something really, also the way you're wording things, there's something also that I feel that I just want to see if it's true or not, but there's something about the simulation. You're saying navigation a lot, but there's something about you simulating and seeing pathways, like imagining how things will work out or what things will be that you use a lot. Do you get what I'm trying to say here?
Sure. So that's my whole theory of the business execution. You in order to be successful in this business, I have to show a track record of steady increases in monthly recurring revenues. You can't just grow by 10% in 1 month and then like 2% the next month. Like it has to be steady. And so I would describe sort of my management philosophy as kind of thinking out 2 or 3 quarters, thinking about what are the lift items that are going to generate the required numbers, and then just working backwards from there. So just and then you have to execute like 2 or 3 of those ideas because like most of them won't work, but one of them will actually work. And so I think that's valid. Like just the ability to really quickly size up like is this a donkey or a unicorn? Like is this
Right.
This proposal going to generate the lift that we need to be successful? Because if not, like we don't have the time to waste on this stupid thing.
Right. And what would be like your current weakness? Because your former weakness you turned into advantage. So what's your current weakness?
Oh, it's still the autism. It's still my weakness. Like I just did an interview for a head of customer success position I'm trying to hire last week, and the feedback from the candidate to the recruiter was like, this is not somebody who I would ever want to work with, just because I come off as being totally socially clueless. Like I try to just ask a lot of questions in like 20, 30 minutes. And it's very off-putting, for certain people, especially if you've never met me before. So I always have to be mindful, for like just, the social cluelessness and trying not to do stupid things.
But I have to argue that you're not social clueless, because in order to be a marketer and to be a good one, you have to understand people. And you yourself are saying that you understand people. So I think maybe there are, obviously, I mean, I'm not saying that you don't have an issue. I'm not going into that at all. I respect what diagnosis you have. But I think maybe there are certain cues that you don't pick up on. But in general, when you zoom out and you look at human behavior, I think you're very much able to decipher what motivates people and be able to leverage that. And I think that's also the secret in very many aspects to your success.
So I've just developed systems to do that. They're all based on looking at numbers. So like the content marketing ideas, that's not based on some deep intuition of the human psyche. It's just based on like, crunching the numbers on like what other, stories and ideas did well, and then kind of making the assumption that if we combine these 2 ideas together, this will be spectacular. This is not it's just a purely algorithmic kind of insights.
And it helps you not get distracted also.
Oh, that's the worst thing. Like if you make all these decisions based on gut feeling, you're going to go nowhere. You're just lucky. That's all.
So people that have this feel that they have the same kind of struggles, what would be your biggest advice for them to give them inspiration to be like you?
I think you have to just really be brutally honest with yourself about sort of what the strengths and weaknesses, and just focusing on, like those super abilities. So just, I think the future belongs to specialists, not generalists. So like you really need to, pick something narrow and specific, and be one of the best at that area. I'm not sure if that's helpful.
And it helps, sort of focus, I think. I mean, what do you tell your son?
It's really hard for him. He doesn't really understand like why he's getting into trouble. And I ask him like, did you have a good day or not? And like, I already know the answer because I have like a detailed email from the teacher, and he doesn't know like why he's getting pulled out of class. He doesn't know.
Did you experience that as a child?
Yes, this is all genetic. So yeah, I think those guys like Steve Jobs and stuff are on the spectrum as well. So
yeah, it seems like I don't know. It seems like you have to be a bit different in order to think differently and do things that are beyond average at that level.
You said that though, specialists also has to be special. Like they have to have unique attributes, right? It's hard to be generic and special at the same time.
And I would argue that, 2019, almost 2020, I would argue that children today that struggle with this are going to have, and I would argue and almost pray that children today are going to have an easier time. Because I think society is almost leaning towards looking for diversity.
Yeah, and I'm in Cambridge, Massachusetts. It's like the most liberal, city in the eastern coast of the United States here. So we have a lot of resources to work on this.
Wow, I wish you only the best of luck.
Awesome, thanks, guys.
And it would be so interesting, to see your company going public, and then to talk to just to meet again and talk about the journey that from this day to when that happens, and then what you plan on doing next.
Sure. Most likelihood, probabilistically, it's most likely going to crash and burn. But in the event that the crazy thing comes to fruition, then let's reconnect.
I'm betting on the opposite. I'll take those odds, and if I'm right, I'm gonna force you to talk to us 5 seconds before you ring the bell.
All right, it sounds great.
Thank you so
very
much.
Okay, thanks.
Bye now.
Real life.
Superpowers.
Up in the sky, it's a bird.
Gentlemen, we can rebuild him. We have the technology.
It's alive!
Real life.
Superpowers.